the Montpelier-Roxbury Board of School Directors meeting at 6:30 on Wednesday, March 4th. And a very warm and special welcome to our new board members, Justin, Ella, and Kristen. We're all thrilled you're here. I'm gonna try to remember to take kind of pace ourselves through the agenda since we have new board members and not just rush through the things that seem very simple and pro forma to us. But I might not remember to do that. So please do not, this is open invitation to tap me on the shoulder, throw a pencil at me, call me out and say, hey, I have a question, or can you please explain that, or anything like that. We really want to do our best to help you all get caught up to speed while we also do the business of the board. And with that said, the first order of business is always public comment. This is a chance for members of the public to share thoughts with the board on anything that might be on the agenda or might simply be important for the board to hear. And this is a time when the board is tasked with simply listening. We don't engage with members of the public during public comment. And that way we can both make sure they have their voices heard and make sure that we are able to move on to the official business of the agenda of each meeting. And we don't have anyone in the room, so nobody here in the building for public comment, but if we have anybody online, you can use the raised hand function. No, to raise your hand. All right, then. Then our next order of business is to move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is where we take a number of things that the board needs to get in front of it or get in front of the community. Lots of them are simply FYI things. And that's why it's very efficient for us to pass them all as one package. Which is why if you're looking at the board agenda, you can see all of them kind of nestled there under the title of consent agenda, where we would pass all of that at once. That said, any board member who has a question about anything that's on the consent agenda or would like to raise anything for discussion on the consent agenda can always do so once the motion is made and seconded. And so we'll do that first. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Casey. Is there a second? All right, thanks. Thanks, Rhett. Any questions or discussion?
As a new board member, I have some questions. So can you give us just a sense, and maybe this is for Libby, of kind of what happens to this document before it reaches us? So how are these verified, like kind of what are the steps that happen before it gets here?
She's referring to the warrant.
The
warrant.
warrant.
Yes.
That's done by our business office, or our chief financial officer is Mike Conchesi. And so he works through all the financial details and puts that in the packet. The operations committee has the oversight of the finances of the district. So they are very in tune with all of the finances that are happening and that kind of thing.
Okay, so specifically where it says that there are good and sufficient invoices supporting the payments, someone at those levels verifies that before this. Okay.
Oh, yes.
Great. That's my only question.
Yep. Great, thank you. Any other questions? Or discussion items? Okay, all those in favor of passing the consent agenda or approving the consent agenda? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Agenda passes. Pretty easy, right? All right, I'm gonna kick it over to you, Libby, to start off with the overview of roles and responsibilities of board members.
Sure. So Mia, just jump in too.
Okay.
Pull this up. So as we are talking about today's board meeting, recognizing that we have new board members, 3. I don't think we've ever had 3 new board members at one time. We thought it would be a good opportunity just to go through roles and responsibilities as a review for board members, as well as potentially new information for our new board members. Anna was going through the veteran status, by the way. Mia, you're the most veteran. Scott,
I'd
you
get
are a
there.
close runner up.
I knew I'd get there someday.
Brett, you are third on the seniority status.
Jake's paying attention down there.
I know, Jake's like, wait, say me, say me. Okay, so roles and responsibility. The school board has these main roles and responsibilities for our district. The board establishes a vision and engages with the community around that vision. They establish and monitor policy, and that's little p. It actually should be big P. Like when I hear policy, people say, what's the district's policy on? And oftentimes we don't have a policy on that because I think of board policy when we say policy. Inside of policies, there are procedures for some of them, and it's the administration's job to write and make sure the procedures are followed, but the board writes the policies around that. They also hire, evaluate, and support the superintendent. Ensure effective and ethical operations for how the board conducts their business, monitors the progress and performance of the district, and provides budget and financial oversight of the district. I've been the superintendent here for 8 years, and I can say that the boards traditionally over these 8 years have done all of those roles really well. I think we've done better at providing budget and financial oversight over the last few years. When I first started, there was very little financial oversight over the district. And the board started a committee and all that kind of stuff within my 8 years. So that is a place that we've grown quite a bit. I think the board has also paid a lot of attention to engaging with the community around our vision. We did a large visioning process 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
More than that, 3.
And are still working within that vision. And a lot of the board's goals are based on that process that we held about 3 years ago. The superintendent and the administration, on the other hand, we do the daily operations and functions of the district. So if it has to do with any kind of operations piece, that is the superintendent's responsibility to maintain and do. We hire all the rest of the personnel besides the superintendent. The teachers and administrators do come to the board and the consent agenda, but board members are typically not on hiring processes for teachers, although when we need you, we call you in, we tag you in if you can do it. There are typically board members on administrative hires, new hires like principals or assistant principals.
But the final decision is ultimately up to you.
Yep, final decision rests with the superintendent. Superintendent and administrators deal with employee discipline and evaluation. If discipline comes to the school board, then that's done in a formal hearing. Thankfully, we've never had that happen before. Fiscal management and budget planning is the superintendent's responsibility. Addressing concerns with any kind of school district issues that comes from community members or families or staff, that is all within my bailiwick. Most of the communication with the community comes from the superintendent's office or principal's offices or teachers. We're of course following all federal and state laws. We're responsible for the safety of our students and our staff and all curriculum instruction and assessment. So basically I went down my job description and reread that today. If anybody wants this gig, go for it. So those are how it's mainly split up between the school board and the superintendent. I rely on school board members quite a bit, particularly Mia and whoever will be deemed the vice chair tonight. As thought partners, they sometimes have access to more information than other board members just because of the nature of the gig, and sometimes they don't. So that's how we kind of work. Any questions or concerns or thoughts on that?
You said that, excuse me, that the board has gotten better at budget and financial oversight. So if you looked at that list on the left, like, what would you think where would you say the next thing you want us to focus on would be?
Very good question. I think we're always trying to get better at engaging the community. It's really hard to engage the community, particularly when the community is, I would say, I was relatively happy. So it's really hard to get the thoughts and concerns out in the open a bit. So the board has spent a lot of time trying to figure out how they best engage with the community, and where's the board's line with that and where's my line. Like it's sometimes mixed there. So we've spent some time talking about that. I think we can always do a better job there. The other piece, we monitor progress and performance for the board at least 3 times a year in academics and in social emotional learning. And we've gotten tremendously better at that. Again, when I first started, we didn't do that at all. So we've gotten a lot better at that. And most recently, the school board has done a really nice job saying to the central office team who does these presentations, can you present the data this way? So it's better understood. So we're really responding to what the school board's needs are in that instance. So I think we're continuing to get better at monitoring progress and performance. There's also the little rub of like what kind of assessment and data and performance should the school board be looking at? Right? What level of data, what grain size? So we're always kind of like, where's the right grain size for that? And if it's like state testing, that always comes way late. So it's not indicative necessarily of where our students are performing right now. It's hard to measure growth in that data too. So there's some rubs there that we're still trying to work out the kinks too, but we are getting better at it. I think we continue to grow as we continue to talk about what does the board need and how do we show that best from an administrative side.
Mhm.
What would you answer
I-
that question with?
The one that stands out to me is the monitoring progress and performance. I think that's the place where we can continue to improve. And I also agree, we've gotten significantly better at that over the years. I think when I first started on the board, we didn't yet even have data presentations. It was like a couple of months in to my tenure on the board is when we maybe saw our first one. And I think the other piece on that is we could do more to align the vision with then following through on, are we monitoring progress within that vision? Because when we established the vision after doing that process we did 3 years ago, we didn't totally line it up with what is available to us in terms of data. And so we have a really exciting opportunity because that vision is expiring at the end of this school year, and we're going to revisit it. And so we have an exciting opportunity to bring those a little bit more into alignment so that when we are monitoring progress and performance, it's within that overall vision that we have for the district.
Does performance include the board's work?
Yes, we
We
do
need to
that.
be better at that too.
We can do a lot better at that, and we do that once a year. And I think we could also do better at that and lining that up with our vision and our goals for ourselves.
And there's a new reg on that, right?
Yeah,
Isn't the
it's
new
part of the
school-
district quality standards.
Yes. Mhm. Mhm.
Any other veteran board members want to chime in there? Yeah, you got some thoughts?
No, I mean, engagement when people are happy is hard. It's true. And going out into the community is. It's a mixed thing, because you're kind of. Hey, wanna talk about school board stuff? People are like, no. That's kind of how I feel sometimes. And measurement is hard. Measurement is always hard, especially measuring ourselves, measuring the culture of the school system. We have a really great survey that goes out, but it's all tools are somewhat limited.
The one thing that I'll add is that these are sort of very generic, something that's specific to our situation in Vermont, right? Especially around the conversations about mergers and stuff like that. Certainly the board has a role in that. Can have a role in that if that's the direction that it goes in. And so that's not sort of reflected in those generic descriptions of our responsibilities, but it's something to, I think, keep in mind.
Jake, Casey, Tim? So one of the pieces that I always like to talk to new board members about, every board member here has seen this, is just communication with the people in the community, because it's really this, I really like this quote. It's from The Governance Core by Michael Fullen, who really writes a book a week, I think. And really smart guy. But I'll just read it out loud too. It's unrealistic to expect trustees not to be learning about the school through informal means. Trustees are still members of the community, hearing things from their children, family members, and constituents. The challenge is how that information fits with the information from the district. Great care must be taken by trustees at these times to understand that, as in the case of informal staff input, they are hearing only one side of every story. For trustees with a governance mindset, their greatest strength in these exchanges is their deep understanding of the purpose and work of the district. So people are gonna come talk to you, your board members. Now you have my number and will text me at any time during the day and night and I will respond to you. So you have easy access. And perceived power by a lot of people in the community. So that's expected that people are gonna come talk to you and tell you what's wrong and tell you what's great too. And so I always like to talk to new board members about like the board communications protocol. And I think it's a good reminder for our veteran ones too. So you'll have a school board email if you don't have it set up already. I think we sent the request to our guy Lucas today. So you'll have a school board email. So all school board communication should be done through your school board email, going forward. Anytime you email me as a school board member, use your school board email. I will also tell you that your personal emails are still available to be FOIA'd, have a freedom of information, request on them. So just know that. So I always tell my administrators and my teachers, if you don't want it as a headline on the Times Argus, do not state it in writing. So that goes for text messages as well and all of that kind of thing, because it all could be FOIA'd. But use your school board email, it's just easier. If you're writing to a principal from a parent perspective, use your personal email. That's absolutely fine from a parent perspective. But if you're doing any other kind of business, use your school board email. I will try to eliminate your personal emails from my content because it automatically populates. So if I send one to your personal email, just tell me that so I can remember to look next time. So if you get an email or a phone call to your individual self, hey, Justin, my buddy who I play pickup basketball is calling me because they have a problem. Listen to what they're being said, thank them, ask any clarifying questions if you'd like, and then redirect that person to the appropriate person in the district. And it's usually going to be me. It's usually send it to me and I can send it off to whoever needs to answer it. If it's not me who needs to answer it. When you're sending something like that to me, you're always CCing me as well on that email. It's usually just good form just to email. If you're emailing me, CC me as well. You'll see, this is kind of an aside, you'll see when I send the school board a whole message, I generally do that through BCC. So we don't start a conversation via email back and forth. And I will CC Mia. So if you reply all back, then it goes to both of us. So you'll just see that's a practice I use. And I would encourage everybody, unless you're like deciding on, I don't know, scheduling something doesn't really matter. But if it's any kind of other board business, then just try to use the BCC function. So you get a complaint from a constituent, either email or phone call, get the story, send it over to me and Mia, and I will answer the person, or I will send it to the appropriate administrator to answer the person. And I'll make sure you know how we've answered them. Usually I'll BCC you on that answer if that happens. Doesn't happen often, but sometimes it does. Email to the school board as a whole. So we have schoolboard@mpsvt.org. And that email will go to all of us, myself included. We have 2 student board members. Is Sam here?
I saw her on,
Did you?
she's right there.
Okay. Sam is on there, and she's not feeling too well today. So Sam and Nora, the school board, just so you know, that email goes to the student reps as well. And also Anna Hipko, who's my executive assistant, it goes to her email too. So the email could go to the school board as a whole. Mia or Tim, well, you're not vice chair yet, but
I might not get reelected. We shouldn't
that's
assume.
true. That's true. Mia is currently the
That's
board
later.
chair.
That's later in the meeting.
So the
Elect
board chair or the
officers.
vice chair, I'll say generic, will respond to that email, eventually. You do not need to respond as an individual board member. Sometimes it happens when you have like direct knowledge or things like that, but if you don't want to answer it, the board chair is going to answer it most of the time. Or I will answer it. It depends on who the email has been addressed to
Like who
and
the
what
questions
the
to.
comments or what the questions are about. This happens way more than the first one, I think, to the whole school board. So I'll make sure that gets answered, or the board chair will. Any questions on these two scenarios? Okay. Social media is a big thing. It used to be bigger than it is now. We have a page called Friends of Montpelier Schools, Public Schools. as a Facebook page. You may be a member of it, that's fine if you are. It used to be very different than it currently is. It used to be very much a place to either rant or celebrate the schools, and could have very long threads on them. It's not that currently. We'd like to keep it that way. Anna and I both monitor that every day to make sure that if something pops that we answer right away. We've learned over time.
And when you say we, it's not a district page. It's something that members
Yeah, members of the community.
members of the
have-
community have organized.
Yep. It's been around forever. It was there before I came on board. So when there's some sort of comment, and it could be anybody's Facebook page or Instagram page or whatever, when there's some sort of comment about the school and there starts to be a thread on there, if, let's say, Jake adds in some thoughts and then Rhett adds in some thoughts and then Scott adds in some thoughts, now that becomes an open meeting of board members because they're responding to each other in a group. So if there's some sort of thread on social media, then Mia, the board chair, is the person responsible for answering for the school board, unless it's like, yes, the meeting is on Wednesday at 6:30, unless it's just a very simple kind of answer. But let the board chair answer that, and then I would recommend staying off the thread. Right now, it's just don't engage in it because we don't want to accidentally break open meeting law. This is something the VSBA was very big on a couple of years ago. So when more than one board member should not respond to a thread and comments on social media because it can be construed as breaking open meeting law. The same thing for like a Google Doc. Like the policy committee uses Google Docs quite a bit. And if you have comments on the side that you're like at home working on and the comments it's like the Robert's Rules of Order haven't caught up with technology yet. And so the comments on the side responding to each other could also be construed as an open meeting law because the public doesn't have access to that document. So generally, if it's worked on in committee, then a PDF of the committee chair will share a PDF with Anna for the notes and things like that. So it's not the comment doc.
So how do you handle like work in progress material?
You can do it in committee, and then you could make a copy for yourself and do it that way. Yeah, it just hasn't caught. What? Yeah, you certainly scan it, take a picture.
When you say you mean in a warned meeting?
Yes,
During-
in a
during
warned
the work
meeting, yeah.
session.
Yeah. Yeah, it just hasn't caught up. And I doubt anybody would say anything, but we don't want to give anybody a reason to say
Yeah.
anything either. I think policy committee, that's where it's the trickiest if people are responding back and forth to a policy. Is the trickiest place for that. So I loved this Gemini created image here.
Oh my gosh.
I want to buy this for you all. It says board member established, whatever blank, always on duty. So it's just a reminder that yes, all of you are parents to kids in our school district, and you always will have your board member hat on as well. You may absolutely contact a principal or the teacher and to discuss your child, 100%. Don't ever think that you can't do that. And at the same time, especially the principals, know you're a board member. And so when you're having those conversations, particularly when they get hard, please be very, very conscious of not stating anything as a board member, but keep it in the parent hat realm.
Not that I've had those serious conversations, but what I try to do is if I'm in a conversation, I will say, as a parent, I am ... Or if I don't think I've ever said it the opposite, as a board member, ... So it's, just an extra way to sort of be clear that I'm speaking as a parent.
I have really strict lines between the principals and the assistant principals and you all. So they know that if you send an email to them that they even construe a little bit as a board member email, they'll send it to me. So just know that, and it's not like a tattletale kind of thing. It's more of a like, how do I respond to this board member? Or would you like to respond to this board member? So that's happened before, and it's not a huge deal, but I make sure that they are the school district's employees, meaning I'm their boss, and I just want to make sure that line is really tight between board and administrators. So just a reminder, you're always on duty as a board member.
You mentioned Robert's rules.
Yeah.
Is that something that will be briefed on? Like, I'm not super, like, I know it exists.
Mhm.
I know that there.
We'll be
like,
voting for parliamentarians
Yeah.
tonight. Everybody wants that role, and I'll get you a good book on it.
No, is that like?
I
part of-
did just learn that we can use Robert's rules for small boards because we are less than 12.
Oh. I'll have
And
to
it's
get
a
new
little bit
book.
of a lighter lift as far as, but it's essentially the make a motion, make a second, then have discussion. That's the main way that we use it. But we do also have, I think you'll get mailed by VSBA as a little cheat sheet on Robert's Rules of Order and open meeting law.
The Secretary of State's office has a really good video
Okay.
that I feel like it's about a half hour and it kind of does the open meetings overview. So I find that useful.
Yeah, I think the open meeting law is the more important
Yeah.
piece than Robert's rules, really.
Okay.
That we want to make sure that we abide by, because people could be looking very closely at open meeting to make sure we don't break any of those rules.
I'm like super elementary Robert's rules. Like they
That-
say. It's like
right.
a motion and a second. I used to have to know it, and there's so many different things that just are not relevant in this space.
Yeah.
Just, it's very elementary.
You won't be quizzed on it ever. You won't be quizzed on it. And then this is just the last slide. When in doubt, just contact me, the board chair, the vice chair. Like I said, I am always available to you all. I'm very responsive. You all are my bosses, so you generally will get an email back very quickly or a text message back very quickly. And if you don't hear from me, then something is happening that I can't respond to. I will say though, that I also, just from my own personal sanity, I cut myself off when the day is done, and I don't generally look at my emails too often, or else I don't sleep at night. Once I go home, and I don't answer emails on weekends. So if you have an emergency on the weekend, then text me, because I will certainly answer that. But my rule of thumb is email is not an emergency. And so I don't generally answer emails on weekends. But other than that, text me just anytime. You have my number now, so go ahead and use it. But that's just the quick overview of roles and responsibilities. Did I
Great.
cover everything you wanted us to cover?
I think so.
Okay.
I was also thinking that the year at a glance, like the calendar might be a good place to show, here's how some of that work of the board happens in real time. So if you can pull that up, we can just show an example of, oh, here's when you can anticipate getting the next presentation on student outcome data. And here's when you can anticipate getting the next quarterly financial report. Because even though the operations committee does a deeper dive with the CFO and with Libby, the board sees the financial reports 4 times a year. We see that, quarterly. So
3 times a year. The
3
fourth
times.
one is always done in the audit.
right.
Okay, so I just want to see this is our agenda for tonight. So at the bottom of each agenda, there's just FYI year-long board agenda,
Yeah, you can always find it there.
and you can click on it. And this is just basically, it's very loose. It's just running commentary. Like when the board chair and myself meet weekly, and when we meet, we sometimes rearrange things. So this is very much a living document. Based on some things that have to happen on certain dates, but also things that we want to have happen. Like I didn't even tell me, although Elaine Pinckney had to change our training from the 1st of April to the 18th. So I changed that on here.
Just fine.
So we're constantly looking in here, but you can see that in red, that's the finance committee's quarterly reports. And other things. So it's just basically all the roles of the board and when we need to talk about it in a board meeting.
Right.
So you can see what's coming up.
And if you keep scrolling, Libby, we'll see, is it not until June? I think it's in June. Thank you. SEL Spring, that is social emotional learning spring data. So we will get a report on student outcomes around social emotional learning. And then and I think that's that looks like it's the last meeting in May, or the, second meeting in May. And then in the second meeting in June, which is our last meeting of the school year, we will get the academic student outcome overview. So those are the two of the places where we're doing that monitoring of progress and performance. Just as an example. more informally, actually, just while it's still up there, more informally, it's not really monitoring, but it's giving the board a good FYI and a good window into what's going on in the different schools. We get pretty regularly different student highlights from the different schools. So our last meeting, we had a great presentation from students who are taking different art kinds of creative art classes at the high school and their teachers. So we could get insight into what the art program looks like at the high school. And, you know, before that, it was the kindness club at UES, things like that. So we get, for both the board and I think the community's benefit, some insights into what's going on in the school,
They're always lovely.
in the schools, and they're great. Yeah. This is also where we're gonna start to plan out the different training. So as Libby mentioned, we're having a consultant come in to help us with that how the board and the superintendent work together around the vision and setting goals, and then how that, you know, you set goals and then you monitor, report progress, you evaluate performance, both board performance and superintendent performance, and then set goals again. So we have a she's a former superintendent, right? Elaine Pickney, who's gonna come in the second meeting in April to give us that overview and sort of a training for all of us on how to do that, to help us get those wheels turning for the work that we're gonna do over the course of the summer, to revisit our vision and priorities and see what goals we'd wanna set for the coming school year. And that's just one of them. We also have other trainings and briefings planned for the benefit of everyone, you know, new board members and returning board members, for just to like make sure we're all up to speed on what the kind of current status is, how we got here, what we're going to be doing next, and how we do our work as the board.
This list at the top here that I pulled up, that some of them are crossed off. Over the summer last year, I asked the board what they were interested in hearing about, to make sure that the presentations that the administration provided were what the board wanted to hear about, and that was the list that was provided. So if they're crossed out, they've already happened. So you can look at which date they happened on if you're really interested in those, and you can find where they are on the calendar there, and then go to their website to find those presentations.
Great. So then we move on to the committees of the board, right?
We should probably elect the chair and
Oh, is that the
vice chair as former vice parliamentarian and maybe soon to be parliamentarian. I think that we were supposed to do that first.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's do that.
And you can you can suspend Robert's rules once you've been elected, and then, but I think at least in the beginning, you're supposed to get elected as chair, or the chair is supposed to be elected.
Even before the consent agenda.
No, I think it's, yeah, I think Scott's right, but it's after consent, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So okay, let's do that then. Okay, so the election of officers is the only officers we're required to have are the chair and the clerk, but we also have chosen to have a vice chair. Which
Chair, vice chair, parliamentarian, secretary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the thing I read in the VSBA said it only had to be a chair and clerk.
I don't even know what a clerk would do.
I
We
don't-
have them listed.
I think the secretary acts as the clerk.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Anna's got you down as secretary.
So I think that's it. I think our secretary acts as the clerk.
Sorry, Casey, I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
So why don't we open it up to nominations we'll start with chair. And I'm just gonna go ahead and nominate myself. Because because I actually,
She loves hanging out with me.
I like doing this role, and to be perfectly honest, when I first started on the board, I really did not think I would. But I've grown into it, and I think that my strengths around meeting facilitation and good listening and being able to moderate conversations help us move the work of the board and the district forward. So I think I do a pretty good job at it. So I'm nominating myself.
I'll second it. Although the AI, what's up?
Does a nomination need a second? Parliamentarian?
Well, apparently, small boards don't even need a second. I just learned, thanks to,
For the Roberts rules.
Yeah.
Right?
but we can stick with our,
We have a good practice going.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were you gonna say about Gemini?
oh, that's what Gemini told me about small boards.
Oh,
Good
right.
job, parliamentarian.
Thank you. Thanks for staying on top of those things. I think we should see if there's any other nominations. Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Alright.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, everybody.
Congrats, Mia.
Congrats.
All right, so now we'll open up the nominations for vice chair.
Tim,
I think that's a nomination.
I nominate you.
Sorry. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, man.
He had it coming.
Yeah, the coming. Excellent. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, congratulations, Tim. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
We'll do secretary next,
Or clerk.
or clerk, secretary slash clerk. Casey, would you?
But I'll nominate.
Would I? A lot of work. Would you like to be nominated, Casey? Great, I'll nominate Casey.
Second.
Great. Any other nominations? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Casey. And then parliamentarian, I'm gonna nominate Scott.
Sure.
Scott seconds the nomination.
Second.
Any other nominations?
I'm happy to let anyone who wants it.
I'm very impressed. You're staying on top of these things. Thank you. All right, all those in favor of Scott for parliamentarian?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great. Congratulations, Scott. So I think that's everyone. And so now we can go on to overview of committees. All right, so I'll just do very briefly. You can see in the board packet, if you want to follow along at home, the board assignments worksheet. That simply lists the committees. It has the current members of the committees with, of course, our board members emeritus highlighted, those who are no longer on the committees. And this is, why don't we just go down this list? I've asked folks who are on each of these committees to just give a little bit of an overview. We're actually not going to ask board members to sign up for committees tonight. We just wanted to give the overview, give new board members and current board members, although you probably have been thinking about this ahead of tonight's meeting, but new board members, maybe you haven't yet thought about which of these committees you'd like to serve on. So we're going to give everybody a couple of weeks to think about that and do the actual committee assignments at our next meeting. And that will give you a chance, if there's a meeting of a committee happening between now and then, you're welcome to come to it to observe the meeting and even, participate in it. You wouldn't vote as a committee member, I don't think, if you weren't appointed to the committee, but you could certainly be a part of the meeting just to see what they're taking on interests you. And then when we come back in a couple weeks, we'll do the actual assignments. And with that, actually, I was going to ask Libby if you could talk about negotiations.
So the negotiations committee, the board is responsible for the negotiated agreements with 3 separate unions. We have a teachers union, obviously it's the MREA, Montpelier-Roxbury Educators Association, the MRESSA, which is our support staff, or paraprofessionals, and then AFSCME, which is our custodians, admin assistants, and technology folk. So we have 3 different groups to negotiate with. this year, we are negotiating with the teachers, the MREA, we're still in process with that. We have finished negotiations with our instructional assistants and just signed we're in the revision, making sure the draft is good. We're in the drafting process of a 3-year contract with our instructional assistants. And then next year, we will be negotiating with AFSCME. They have been on a 3-year contract, so we try to keep them off kilter, so I don't have to be in 3 negotiations at one time. So when we are negotiating, this is a big time commitment. When we are not negotiating, it is no time commitment. So just know that. So we're working on we're hoping to get a 3-year contract with the teachers. We just got a 3-year contract with the IAs. We'll try to get a 3-year contract next year with the AFSCME unit as well. So, once we are done with those negotiations, then, there's no time commitment to it whatsoever. And it's huge when it's happening. So typically there's 4 members on that committee. And like this year, when we were negotiating with 2 different units, 2 people went to MRESSA and 2 people went to MREA. So you're not going to all of them. I go to all of them. We generally have, our legal team help us work with teachers. And I generally lead the negotiations with our instructional assistants and our AFSCME staff. As well, and board member is required to put their John Hancock on any tentative agreements that come our way. Brett, would you want to add anything to that? Because you've sat through some negotiations with me.
It's hard. It's hard.
It is. What is happening?
It's a major, it's just hard. You know, you want to do right by everyone. It's impossible to give everyone what they want, and it brings up speaking for myself, it brings up some challenging experiences that I gotta process because.
It can be tricky when you're sitting across from your child's teacher.
And, there are a lot of ways to look at what teachers are doing. They're doing amazing things and they're working approximately 1,172 hours a year. Because it's 178 days, that's what they negotiate for, 7 hours a day, and I know they're working more than that. But those are all realistic things. It's tough.
It is. I have not sat in on negotiations, so I have great appreciation for the folks who serve on those committees. And the one thing I'll add to what Libby and Red have just said is that the final contracts do come before the board. They come before the board in consent agenda. So even if you're not on the negotiations committee, if you had questions about the contract, it does come before the full board before it is in order to be finally ratified. And members of the negotiation committee and Libby will keep board members informed as the process goes. And will sometimes come to us and say, we have some options and we're looking actually for some input from other board members to help us decide between these 2 options.
I think as we're talking about the different committees, and I appreciate Rhett what you had to say. But I think in addition to saying what's challenging, it would also be really helpful to us new members in knowing what's good. What do you like about being on these committees? What feels satisfying about that?
Right, you want to think to when you're on the IA negotiations?
I mean, it's great to land a contract, that's great, something, you're trying to give these educators what they want and if it doesn't go well, then it's really just hard. I don't know that there's anything great about, going to mediation. I don't know, if it's not working, it's not, I don't know what's good. It doesn't feel good at all, because I wanna give teachers a lot. But it's what we're signed up for, so it's a responsibility from my perspective that I just do my best. I don't know.
I can give one example of from a contract a couple of 3 years ago, maybe with the paraprofessionals, the IAs, where we wanted to actually help with career development and also have people with more experience and more training working with kids with tougher behavioral issues. And we wanted to recognize that with a pay scale. And that was worked out in negotiations. And that it wasn't necessarily an easy process, but we got to use the negotiations process in order to put something in place that I think was overall a win-win as far as district and rewarding staff.
I spent a lot of time in negotiations. It's fascinating to me to see your perspective, and the contract is like my Bible almost while we're working with employees. So to get it as clear cut as possible is really important to me. So it is satisfying once we get through that process, but it's a rule.
And a lot of it is there is a lot of agreement about just how to look at things in a way that works better. So like, if you're talking about the language in the contract, there's a lot of common ground and just making things better and easier. It's the dollars, that's what's.
All right, let's move on to operations. That is you, Tim, right?
Yeah. So the operations committee is a new committee this past year. We just finished our first year of committiness. It used to be there was the financial committee and the facilities committee, and they merged to become the operations. And I think it's been a strong merger, particularly this year. So the main roles, as Libby was mentioning before, are to review the quarterly financial reports, kind of talk through them with the CFO and with Libby, kind of understand our financial position as the year progresses. We do some work to try and think about the budget a little bit as the administration starting it. But this past year, it's been really focused on our capital plan and our capital initiatives. Not sure how much everyone's followed our work with the UES windows and some work with the MSMS windows as well. There've been a capital project that's been on the horizon for
Years.
yeah. And so we've had some funds in a reserve fund, and we spent a lot of time working with our facilities director and our CFO to line up the funds, identify the most critical need and opportunity, and we have a really good project that we're gonna get an update on Friday at our committee hearing. So I think the merger of facilities and finance has been really good, but to be honest, I mean, I feel like I don't know if that, as this project moves, I don't know if there might be other areas we focus on a little bit more. I think being that it's a new committee, I think we're still working with the administration to make sure it's as useful as it can be to the administration and the board. And so I think for the agenda, everyone's welcome Friday morning at 8 o'clock, remote committee meeting. We're going to talk about the quarterly financial report and update on the facility, on the project, the Windows project. The legislature is kicking around a law with some new guidance on school reserve funds that we're going to briefly talk about. Just a couple other things. There's the auditors put out a report on radon testing, just some things to just kind of touch base with the administration on. And we'll see where it goes from there, but I think it's been a really productive committee over the past year. It's really fun to work with Tom, our operations, our facilities head, and Mike, our CFO, and Libby in that context. So it's a good committee.
Did you get a tour of the US basement?
We got to go through all the buildings. Yeah. That was the coolest.
Pretty wild.
There's still a ledger
We
in
do
UES.
3 new board members, so maybe we need to re-up those tours.
I know,
I will finally get to go on
I
one.
will gladly take anybody around, especially in the US basement. It is a place to see.
We found a milk money ledger from like
Yeah.
100 years ago.
What was it, 18?
It was a long time.
Wow.
And some very
Basement
large
at
things
UAS.
too.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
As far as the committee meetings, once we have our board emails, is there a shared calendar that we'll have access to that shows when those take place, or how do we know? If you're saying we could pop into a meeting, how do we know when those?
You'll see an email from Anna for every committee meeting and board meeting that they're being warned. So, and that has the date and time on them and whether it's virtual or in person. We don't actually keep a running board calendar. You're welcome to through your Gmail calendar for your own board email address, but we don't have one that is board wide.
For operations, we've settled on the first Friday of the month at 8 AM. So we just kind of have that regular time unless we need something else.
Any other thoughts or questions on the operations committee?
If you like spreadsheets, that's a good, yeah, which I do, so. That's one of the things I get joy in.
Policy. Rhett, can you tell us about the policy committee?
Yeah, Tim's on policy committee. With myself, two departing members have been on it for a long time. Tim worked with the VSBA, and the VSBA had a program where they reviewed our policies and made recommendations for required policies. So a lot of what we're doing right now is, which feels good to me, is sort of moving through what's required and making sure that it is accurately reflects. You know, I don't know when it doesn't, but at times there are policies that come up. The phone policy was recommended by the VSBA, so that's what we'll be looking at next, because that's got to gel with what Jason put together with his committee. And just get it, to me, it feels very like we're getting things done. The timing is up to the group, really, and I think that's how a lot of committees go. It depends on what works for folks, so you guys have a standing time. But some of these committees are gonna need more people, and if there are a couple of new people that have different schedules, we've got to flex to that. Different people have different work schedules that need to be respected, and so however that works is how each committee, I think, will probably be scheduled, which goes to say that there's not currently a policy committee meeting scheduled because it needs more people. So I don't know how someone could drop into that. Neither an equity committee. There's a committee meeting scheduled because we're doing a specific thing, but those two committees are sort of not currently scheduled because.
As far as a standing meeting goes,
Yeah.
that's
and,
true.
It should flex to what works best for the group.
So just one thing I'll add, just a little bit of context for what Rhett was saying on the phone policy. So if you weren't following along last year, there was a very strong grassroots movement in the district to go cell phone free, bell to bell in our schools. And our principal here at the high school, Jason Gingold, took the lead on forming a working group of students, staff, caregivers, and administrators to gather information from the broader community, mostly focused on the high school, and to determine what would work best for our, and I think they first started with the question of, should we even go cell phone free bell to bell? And then if so, what would that look like? And developed procedures for it. We decided at the time that the board didn't need to have a policy in order to make that all happen, because they were making it happen in the first place. The middle school adopted what the high school had put in place. But now the legislature has passed a bill that requires districts to have a policy about no cell phones bell to bell. And so we're just gonna fill back in and make sure that any policy we pass doesn't mess with the good thing that they've got going here, because what they've put in place, and I think because they followed a really intentional process, is working very well. So that's the policy committee, and one example of a policy you would pass as the policy committee. And as with other committee work, policies, and we'll see this later in the meeting, come before the board for final passage. Because committees can do work on behalf of the board, but cannot take action without the full board taking action.
They're also annually monitored by Libby, and there's a report that they've been followed. And if something comes up, then it may go before the policy committee for review or alteration, so that we don't violate our own policies. We make sure that they're achievable and measurable.
Yep. All right, next on the list is equity and engagement. Casey?
Sure. So the Equity and Engagement Committee is looking at strengthening kind of our board equity practices and policies and thinking about the district approaches to that. So you expect from the name. At this point last year, it was just equity and we added on the engagement component. So we're seeing that there was some need for that. And I'd say we kind of leaned heavily into that engagement side over this past year. So we did a lot of work to try and set up, hopefully you saw some of us board members out at events and kind of branding our board signature while we're out at those moments. And building that into our regular calendar, so that way we have an approach to how we're engaging with the community that will endure for years to come. It's the idea. On the equity side, I think, we've looked at helping set up some of the DEI training that this board gets and getting that built into the annual calendar, and making recommendations for what that might look like. And looking at our district equity report, which is 3 years old now.
I think just two.
2? Okay.
Yeah.
And the administration's anti-racism and equity plan to kind of build that framework for what we should be thinking about and talking about. I think something that we're wrapping up, or we're starting right now really, and we'll be continuing into the next year, is working on talking with various groups that are doing fundraising in the district to try and come up with some guidelines on what kind of accessible fundraising might look like for the different sports groups, various groups across the district. And some of the work that we were talking about earlier and looking at data and trying to look at what level is the right granular level of data and how that might tie into our equity thinking is something that this committee has undertaken as well, and will certainly continue. So it's a pretty broad topic as far as things that I enjoy about it. You're thinking about the community, and that is that's part of why we're all here, right? Like we want to be a helpful presence for our community, and that's been a large focus of this committee, which is a good place to begin.
Any questions?
One more thing about the Equity Engagement Committee is Anna Hipko. What is Anna's title? I don't want to say it wrong.
She is my executive assistant and communications coordinator.
And so she's in the last few years, sort of in response to our desires to engage more frequently, more accessibly, has sort of helps organize a lot of our opportunities to go speak to people. So that's a huge help. And so she can help publicize through different avenues where we're going to be when we're in the community. And as far as the engagement part, thank you to Anna.
Yes, she's behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Great. And then we've got the Superintendent Evaluation Committee. This one conducts the process of evaluating the superintendent with the help. Last year, we hired the VSBA to help us facilitate that, and we're going to do that again this year, since we found having a third party to hold the process was extremely helpful, and also it had become a very time-intensive process for members of the committee, and now that and in recognizing that this is largely a volunteer position, being on the school board, we wanted to make sure to not be overburdening any one board member. But we're still the conduit to hold that process and make sure that that happens on time every year. And that usually takes place now-ish. We're actually going to get started with the process later in March. And then it wraps up by the end of the school year. And all board members participate by filling out the evaluation based on their observations and their of Libby in action, as well as observations of the district. This might be a little bit different for brand new board members, given that you haven't really had a chance to see it all up front and very close at hand. I believe our VSBA contact said that this would be a good chance for you to observe the process and then next year fully participate in the process. And then once that's, the process ends with working with Libby to set goals for for the coming school year. And then the committee checks in with Libby once or twice during the school year before the evaluation process kicks off again to say, hey, how are we doing at those goals? Does anything need to be adjusted? Do you need any other supports? So that's roughly the work of the superintendent evaluation committee. I think it's also a place where we could change that to being overall evaluation, and maybe it's that committee that could help drive the work of the board evaluating itself as well, as we work on getting better at doing that. And then the last thing that I'll say is that as part of, this is backing up just a little bit, as part of the evaluation of the superintendent, this committee facilitates the climate survey that we administer, that we send out to all staff, and that they fill out on just, what is it like being how are they experiencing being a staff person in our district? And while that doesn't directly correlate, like there's no question on the superintendent evaluation that says, what was the score for question 3 of the climate survey? It's more of a broad strokes, because Libby is the administrator and the final say and the big boss of the whole district. How people are experiencing working here is a reflection of her leadership. And so we look at it with very broad strokes, but it is a component of the process that the committee facilitates at the beginning of the process. So that's the evaluation committee. This one is a little bit like negotiations when there's not really anything going on. We don't meet, and then during the evaluation process, we have more, we meet fairly regularly, maybe every couple of weeks, as we need to. And so this one doesn't really have like a standing meeting or anything. It's more of just like we meet as we need to. And for about half of the year, there's a very light time commitment, and then about not quite half of the year, there's a little bit more of a frequent meeting cadence.
Do you know offhand for the climate survey, like what's your response rate?
We have them do it at staff meetings, so it's quite high.
It's actually quite high. I want to say it's about 75%. That might be my memory inflating the number just a little bit, but it is actually, it's quite good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we want to make sure that it's not something they are going to do on their spare time, but that there's actually time to dedicated, like Libby said, at staff meetings, to fill it out. All right, last but not least, not exactly a committee, but representing the MRPS board at the Central Vermont Career Center Board.
Yeah,
What can you
so.
tell us about that, Scott?
So CVCC, Central Vermont Career Center, is the regional career and technical education center that serves 18 towns. You know how many
Is
towns?
that right?
Something about like,
All of the sending districts include the towns from Harwood, the towns from Montpelier-Roxbury, Barry Unified, the towns from Washington Central with U32, Plainfield, Twinfield, and Cabot. So that is a separate school district. It's currently co-located with the Barry Unified School District. And that school district, the CVCC board is made up of representatives from all of the sending districts, and then the larger districts also have some at-large members. So there's an at-large member from Montpelier, Barry, and the U32 district. And yeah, and so all of the things that you heard, well, not everything, but a lot of the same things that you heard about our board happens at the CVCC board for that district. And so I am the I had been serving as the representative from our board on the CVCC board. And then there was also, I think you were gonna have Sam
Yes,
talk
that's
about
right. That's right.
the-
Thank you.
the student, and I think if Sam was feeling well, I know they
Yeah.
said that they weren't feeling well.
Yeah. Sam, you can kick this to Scott if you would like, but we'd love to hear you if you're able to talk about the student liaison position and how, or the student rep position and how the liaison from the voted, I guess, voted for board members supports you with that.
I can talk about that. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear?
Okay. Okay, good. So basically there are two student reps that are like chosen by the board. Um it's me and Nora. Um and that we will be going through the process. I'm a senior, so I'll be leaving this year, so there will be someone new next year at the very least. Um but basically I'm giving student feedback and like student perspective to board decisions, sort of, and like discussion topics. I basically share, just like what I said, a student perspective. So I like add things to during discussions. It's not a voting position, but I know there's like some talk of there might be a law passed soon that gives student reps a voting position. So that's something to keep track of. But basically, I meet with someone, well, me and Nora usually meets with like once every other week with a student representative, not student rep, board representative. Um, and basically, we talk about any questions that I or Nora have. Um, if we wanted to have any presentations about what's happening in the school, we would talk about that. It's mostly just like a supportive position to make sure that the student reps understand what is happening and don't need any more support than they're already getting, sort of.
Great. Thank you, Sam. Would you add anything to what Sam said?
Only that I, for the last couple of years, I had been the liaison, the full board, the voting member liaison, student mentor, whatever you want to call it. I don't know that we had an official name for
don't know if it does.
the position, but yeah, and so I've really enjoyed the opportunity to work with the students to bring their voice into the larger conversations.
Great. Any questions about that role? All right, great. Then the last thing that we'll note here, like I said, we're not gonna do committee assignments tonight, but the last thing that we'll note here that this is an appeal to our veteran board members to consider being a mentor or a buddy for a new board, for any one of our new board members. This is a practice that we've had for a few years now, and I think it is helpful in, giving some, right alongside as you get to know the different ins and outs of what it's like to be a board member. If you were nervous to ask a question in a board meeting, but you maybe then you can like text your buddy or grab coffee with them the next day and be like, what the heck just happened there? And do we have to do it that way? And then it's, kind of breaks down some of the formalness of being on the board as well, which I think is helpful. So for any veteran board members, if you're interested, please let me know, and I'll line you up with a incoming board member. Incoming board members, you don't have a choice. You're gonna get a buddy if we have one for you. But you really don't have to spend a whole lot of time with them. You could just do one or two conversations and be like, I'm good. Which I think might have happened. I think I might have been buddied up with Jake and he was like, yeah, I get it now.
Didn't we like get lunch or something?
We did. And then I was like, you want to do this again? He's like, that's why he's all the way down at the end of the table.
I keep him a double ticket, your can.
Can?
Put him in the koozie.
It's like fancy seltzer, it's not.
Fancy seltzer.
Keep doing double takes though, koozies.
And that's it.
Mia, can you talk about the process in which committee assignments are made? Like, is it a combination of things? Is it just interest? Is it interest need? And like also, do current members have the opportunity to move? Committees, if that's.
Yes to all of that. Current members can move, current members can step down. I'm glad you asked the question, because one thing I don't think we mentioned is that we do require, I think is the right word to use, board members be on at least one committee, and we encourage to. Some board members do more than that. You certainly don't have to do more than that. And I think really committee assignments are basically up for grabs. I wouldn't say that any board member who's been on a committee is guaranteed that spot. And that said, we generally don't limit the number too much. If there were 5 board members who nope, we couldn't do that because that would be a quorum of the board. But so that is the limit. I would say 4 is the limit. Ideally, it's an odd number, which would mean 3 is ideal, because then it's a little bit easier to make sure you have a quorum of the committee in order to hold the meeting. We have gotten into situations where we have 4 board members that are serving on a committee, and if 2 show up, then the meeting doesn't have a quorum, and so then officially the meeting didn't happen. Or we just say, oh, I guess we gotta reschedule this one. So those are some of the guiding guardrails for us. And it really is just, what are you interested in? We may have to say, oh, we only have 2 people on this committee. We really do need a third. So we might need to like do a little bit of encouraging, but I would definitely say you could just pretty much it falls into place if people just choose the ones that they're interested in. Thanks for asking the question. So the next item of business is policy monitoring. As Rhett mentioned earlier, we do this at almost every single board meeting. We take a break on it during budget season when those meetings can get pretty full. But on every other board meeting, we monitor 2 or 3 policies. Libby completes a monitoring report to share with us to say, here's how we are or not in compliance with the policy, and presents evidence to that. So that's what's written in the monitoring report. We also include the policies themselves, so you can read the policy to compare that with the monitoring report. And similarly and by the end of the school year, we'll have gone through and monitored every policy once, right? That's how you've got it scheduled out. And similar to the consent agenda, we usually move these as a package, but then again, any board member can pull any one monitoring report off if they have questions about it or if they want to have a discussion about it. So the first thing to do is to make a motion to approve the monitoring reports. And tonight we are monitoring policy D5, animal dissection, and C28, transgender and non-conforming students. So is there a motion to approve those monitoring reports?
So moved.
All right, thank you, Tim. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Scott. Any discussion on either of these or questions from any board member?
I have a question.
Mhm.
So just to be clear, this is monitoring progress against the policy. It wasn't you made a change to the policy and you're.
That's right. That's right.
It took me like 4 board meetings to figure that. That's me.
You stay on the board long enough, you'll recognize that the monitoring reports don't change a whole lot.
Especially for something like animal dissection,
and-
I would imagine.
Mileage. Yep, we're in compliance. with mileage.
I have a question. I always wondered, on the policy monitoring, how come sometimes they have signatures and sometimes they don't?
You should always have signatures. You got a copy, there's not a copy without a signature on it? You mean my signature?
Yeah, doesn't it sometimes, don't you sign them sometimes?
There are a couple policies that Mia signs, like, because it's a board,
You mean a monitoring report? Yeah.
monitoring report, sorry.
Okay.
But other than that, I sign all of them.
Or I've
Mike
seen
and
like the
Jesse signs it.
CFO
Yeah.
has signed, yeah. Do you see one that doesn't have a signature?
Well, the 2 today don't have signatures.
They're above, it's above. Oh, look, that's not the monitoring report. It's a second link on the agenda.
Oh,
That's the monitoring report. You're just
Yeah.
looking at the policy.
that's why.
Yeah, he's like the 4th longest serving
No, he was proud to hold up those 4 fingers.
It was late for me.
That too, that too.
I have a
We're looking
question.
at all kinds of things, yes.
I have a question. So Libby, in terms of, and I did the same thing. I didn't print out the monitoring report for the dissection, but for either of them, can you just give the new board members a sense of kind of what data do you look at while you're drawing your conclusions that the policies are being enforced?
It really depends on the policy. Really, because all of them are so different. So like animal dissection, I went up to our biology teachers when I was getting prepared to monitor. I said, hey, I'm monitoring animal dissection, which I have this conversation with them every year. And I say, are you offering other alternative methods for this? Yes, we are. This is what we do. So sometimes it's just checking in with people. Most of the time it's just checking in with people, and some it's just, you know, some of the policy monitoring, I'm required to report the number of instances that tobacco usage has been found on campus. And so I go to the principals and I ask them, you know, so it depends on what the policy monitoring is. But most of them are pretty standard stuff.
So I don't know if you guys have seen, but on the MRPS board site, one of the links is to policies, and there's like a whole spreadsheet of different numbered policies, so there's a ton of them.
Yep. And the procedures. And if the policy states that I have to show the board yearly, like how much we spend on transportation. Transportation says how much we spend on transportation, how many buses do we run? So I find that number out from my Contessa, you know, so it just depends on what the policy is.
Great questions. Any others? Okay, all those in favor of approving the monitoring reports for D5 and C28, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And then last item of business is policy adoption. Oh, I thought these were gonna go in the consent agenda.
They have to go in a separate piece
Oh,
for
special
policy
warning.
adoption.
Okay. So let me kick it over to Rhett to just give a little bit of an overview of these.
So these are required by the VSBA
Required by Vermont statute.
by statute.
Yeah.
So, which we learned through the
Yeah.
VSBA because they did a review of our policies. And a lot of our policies are based on the VSBA recommendations. They make adjustments to their policies on a regular basis. And then we review those adjustments, adopt them or discuss them or alter them or figure out how to make sure they fit with our values. And of these, alcohol and drug-free workplace, education records, student alcohol and drugs, and participation of home study students, they're all to the letter, what is required by statute and recommended by the VSBA. The nutrition and wellness policy has some variation in there, some choices that we were able to make, with a lot of these policies. When we get the recommended policy, we send it to Libby. We ask Libby to review and have administrators and other faculty review those portions that are in their sort of domains and scope. Their recommendations and feedback comes back to the policy committee. We incorporate their feedback into the policy. So the nutrition and wellness policy actually has come through to us a lot in the last couple of months because of a variety of reasons. But there are small changes in, like, there are a lot of things in the nutrition and wellness policy that come out of federal agencies and federal statute, and a lot of that has been in flux in the last year. So some of that was the reason why that policy kind of cycled through the board so many times, I think.
Have these been through like first, second, third reading?
We did a first read, the wellness and nutrition and wellness, we've done multiple readings of, but the other 4 are so standard. We did one reading and then we just went to warning.
That's all we technically need, right?
Right.
It's we need the one reading.
Yeah.
And because the policy committee didn't change anything from the required language.
We thought we had to do 3 readings and then Jim looked into that a little bit more and we didn't. We only need to do 1.
And the
looks like-
reading, just to fill in new board members is the reading was just, it went on the agenda. So that members of the public could see that we were considering this policy and board members could discuss it. And that happened at the last board meeting for B3, C1, C2, and C6. We did that at the last meeting. And because none of the language changed from what is required by law, and the board was like, we're fine with this language, we decided not to have it go through multiple readings. But as Rhett said, policy C9, the nutrition and wellness, had several iterations. So the board has looked at it 2 or 3 times before tonight, to just, keep up with the changes.
I'm wondering,
And so is tonight like the real deal when they get adopted?
If we pass them.
Okay, so like a board member could study up before a meeting and like if they had anything to say about, could they say it tonight?
Yes.
And maybe would it go back to the policy committee if they like really thought some language was problematic or something?
Are you hinting?
What?
Are you hinting at what you're gonna do?
No. Well, and I do, I'm just like thinking about like the process.
That is correct. What you would,
Ideally,
yeah.
like, not the final reading, it would be.
Well, the last one has changed between
Yeah.
the last reading and
Sure.
this reading.
yes.
And this is now the real deal for nutrition and wellness, right?
Yeah.
So maybe
I don't,
now would be the time.
I do have concerns, and one thing that has changed is, I'm a new board member. This will preview a little bit of what committee I would like to join. But I don't have concerns about the nutrition one. But I think there are some, maybe we can hash them out here in open session today, or maybe it needs to go back to the committee, but I think there are some things that are missing from the drug and alcohol workplace and for kids here. And some of them are like small word choices that could be made, but I definitely have things to flag. So I don't know if that happens here and now, or we talk about kicking it back to committee, or how that works.
I think the best way to do it would be to flag them here and now, and then ask that the board not pass that policy and send it back to committee instead.
Okay, so do that now.
Yeah, go for it.
So looking between the two, so if we look at the drug-free workplace versus the student alcohol and drugs, the student alcohol and drugs, I think, has the accurate language, which talks about illegal drug use. It talks about that every time it talks about drug use, whereas I think it's the word illegal that's missing in the alcohol and drug-free workplace. As written here, my concern is that this would set employees, work study people, volunteers up for potential problems, condition of employment, termination for using drugs that are controlled substances with a prescription. So as written, it is talking about using, possessing any drug in the workplace. If we think about drugs as being a controlled substance, that would apply to Adderall, Ritalin, Vyvanse, anti-anxiety medications. There's a whole world of controlled substances that you could have a prescription for and be legally using and have in your bag at work and be under the influence of, if you are a teacher or a volunteer who has ADHD, for example, or anxiety that receives those. So the things that are missing here is under the influence of illegal drugs, and making sure that language matches. I think the student alcohol and drugs has it right. I looked at a couple of other school board policies, Hartford Unified SD, Winooski, and others have that illegal language in both. And so, we just really need to think about controlled substances is very big. The Adderall, Ritalin are Schedule 2. The anti-anxieties are Schedule 4. Those are controlled substances, even though you could legally be using them. And certainly we have a lot more, monitoring in place in terms of students not administering prescriptions and things like that, but we don't have that. And we would not be able to require documentation unless there was some sort of, reasonable suspicion of impairment. So people should be allowed to have legal prescription drugs in their, and have them and use them and in fact be under the influence of them. So that's the main one. And you did notice that some of the other school districts have a kind of a broader purpose statement on each of these types of policies, really balancing and talking about, of course, wanting to provide a safe and healthy drug-free environment and allowing students and staff to use legally prescribed medications in a safe and appropriate manner. So definitely have some concerns about those, have some suggestions, have some other examples of policies, but my read would be that this is not quite ready for prime time because of the broadness really of what a controlled substance is and the idea of saying any drug. Getting to illegal use would mean off-brand use. It would mean using or abusing something you have a prescription for, but you are, to the level of impairment. But I think if we're gonna press pause, perhaps going back to a committee to be able to then really look, these are pretty lean compared to some of the other ones that I've seen that might have a little more of a purpose statement. There also are other districts that talk about the connection to alcohol. Alcohol is not fall under the same drug description here. And if we want this to include alcohol, we should probably refer to some of the other statutory language that allows employees to be screened and disciplined if it comes to it for alcohol use. So I think there are several things. At first I thought, oh, we can just add illegal, but I think it's a little bit broader than that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we don't have a motion yet for any of these. I think given the concerns that Ella raised, are you asking for the workplace and the student and alcohol and drugs?
I am,
To
yes.
go back to committee?
I am, yes, just because the student one I think is a little bit closer, but I think there needs to be more explicit balance in terms of what is lawful use, and what the purpose for here would be. And I think it would be smart for us to have those be really tightly lined up with each other. And so if we change one, why not look at both to make sure that they lined up?
Okay, okay. So then, as long as that is all right with the board, what we'll do is we'll entertain a motion to adopt policy C1, education records, C6, participation of home study students, and C9, MRPS nutrition and wellness policy.
And having said that, there is some sort of typo maybe in the health and wellness, C9. There's says other school-based activities to promote student wellness, and then there's a number 1, but there's nothing listed
Nothing
there.
for number 1.
So it's then there's an at where the goals for nutrition number 7, rules and at seasonal. So there seems like there are just maybe a couple of typos that need to be cleaned up, but I'm not sure how you would handle that. But maybe a motion, if those are removed, then
Yeah.
it could be adopted.
Cleaned up.
Yeah.
Cleaned up.
Yeah.
How does that sound? Do you want to make the motion?
I will make the motion that we will return student alcohol and drugs and B3 alcohol and drug-free workplace to the committee and move to approve the remaining policies with the understanding that the typos or odd things in the policy C9 will be cleaned up.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We've got 3 new policies and a little bit more work for the policy committee. Thanks, everybody. I think that's everything. So motion to adjourn?
Well, there's one other thing. Montpelier board members' votes count as two. And I don't know if you're aware of this, just in case you're not.
Oh,
I
right.
don't know how much this, rarely ever is there a significant disagreement. There's one instance I can think of, but just Casey and I's votes count as one, which reflects our population proportion to Montpelier's population proportion, which gives us a partner, which is really nice, and adds committee members, which is also, I think, a bonus. But just want that to be known.
It's true.
So we
Yep.
treat them equally.
We are
I
just.
don't say aid.
All right, well
It
then,
doesn't change anything in terms of quorum though, right? You count as full quorum.
Yeah, there are rarely contentious issues.
yeah. Motion to adjourn?
Was
Do we have a hearing,
yeah,
or is that?
You
coming
gotta
up?
fill out the doodle.
Yes, reminder to everyone to fill out the doodle.
I didn't see a doodle, I'm sorry.
It's at the bottom of the email, Libby said.
Oh. I have to read it all the way to the bottom.
Yeah,
Mine-
that's usually how they work.
I think we should take a minute to celebrate the budget vote. I mean, it's pretty overwhelming. Even in Roxbury, I know it was pretty much like 50-50 in Roxbury, but like with the size of the increase, I do think that the,
Celebrate and say appreciation to our community
yeah,
for
Yes,
I think
supporting our schools.
seeing that, especially in the face of the 30% increase in Roxbury, I think was a big deal. And the overwhelming support in Montpelier, I think it's great news and very appreciative of the community for it.
Yes, absolutely.
I do have a question.
Oh, Sam?
If we were to go into the special session to discuss the housing issue, would I be welcome to that, or would I not be?
You, I mean, I think it's an open meeting, but not the deliberation. Sam, you would be able to attend the hearing part, but not the deliberation part.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And is that because they are non-voting?
Because they're non-voting, they were not elected by the communities. Okay, I'm gonna try one more time. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move that we adjourn.
All right, is there a second?
second.
Any discussion?
I believe it's non-debatable.
It's true.
That is, yes, yeah, so we can discuss it, we just
Can't debate that.
can't debate it.
Yeah,
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's go home.
This is when Jake's good ideas.
No.
No, I-
At 8 p.m.